Hi guys, Wade Cockfield. Quickly going to show you here some results I've been getting over the last few months. So first thing is baby boy clothing. Took this site from number 8 to number 1. Baby clothes sale went from 48 to number 3. Baby clothes went from 52 to number 1. Baby clothing went from 13 to number 1. Baby girl dresses went from 48 to number 3. Bed bases went from 9 to 1. Bed frames went from 9 to 1. Bed size went from 5 to 1. Bedroom furniture went from 22 to 1. Beds, took that from 9 to 1. Best internet deals went from 4 to number 1. Boys clothing went from 46 to number 1. Bunk beds 8 to number 2. Candles Australia all the way from 100 to number 2. Candles online all the way from 100 to number 1. Candles itself, single word, went from 100 to number 2. Canvas shoes 10 to 1. Chase lounges went from 5 to number 1. Chase sofa went from 8 to number 1. Cheap car insurance went from 12 to 1. Compare electricity went from 8 to number 1. Competitive market prices went from 100 to number 1. Couch went from 8 to number 1. Couches Melbourne went from 13 to 1. Digital marketing workshops went from 89 to number 1. Dining from 7 to number 1. Dogman ticket 100 to number 1. Dogman training 100 number 1 again. Double bed frames went from 9 to number 1. Double bed went from 16 to number 1. Double beds 17 to number 3. Electricity went to number 3 as well, starting from 8th. Asparellas went from 13 to number 2. Funeral insurance started at 4, went to number 1. Furniture Melbourne started at 5, went to number 1. Furniture shops from 5 to 1. Furniture stores Canberra 9th to number 1. Furniture stores Melbourne from 100 to number 2. Furniture stores from 15 to number 1. Girls dresses, took that from 22 to number 1. Grocery price comparison went from 100 to number 1. Harem pants went from 19 to number 3. Health insurance compare went from 5 to number 1. Internet deals from 4th to number 1. Internet from 9 to number 1. Kids beds from 85 to number 1. Kids beds from 33 to number 1. Yeah, the first one was a singular, the second one was a plural. From kids bed and kids beds. King bed frame from 15 to number 1. Frames from 19 to number 1. King bed by itself went from 18 to number 1. King beds, same, 19 to number 1. King said bed frame from 8th to number 1. King said bed frames from 6th to number 1. King single bed went from 6th to number 1. King single beds went from 6th to number 1. King single mattress went from 9th to number 1. King single bed frame, king size bed frame 37 to number 1. King size bed 9th to number 1. King size beds went from 10th to number 1. King size mattresses went from 8th to number 1. Kitchen tiles took that from 57 to number 4. Life insurance went from number 2 to number 1, and that's a big increase in that industry. Litigation lawyers Melbourne took that from 26 to number 1. Lounge from 19 to number 2. Lounges Melbourne from 72 to number 1. Mattress from 86 to number 2. Mattresses from 59 to number 2. Modular lounge from 4 to number 1. Modular lounges from 4th to number 1. Modular sofa, took that from 5 to number 1. Outdoor tiles Melbourne, took that from outside the 100 to number 5. Property managers, took that from 10th on Google to number 1. Queen bed dimensions from 8th to number 1. Queen bed frame 9 to 1. Queen bed frames 9 to 1. Queen bed size 5 to 1. Queen bed from 21 to number 1. Queen beds from 21 to number 1. Queen mattress from 12 to number 1. Queen size bed from 10 to number 1. Queen size beds from 11 to number 1. Queen size mattress from 8th to number 1. Queen size bed from 10 to number 1. Queen size beds from 11 to number 1. Queen size mattress from 8 to number 1. Recliner lounge from 9 to 2. Rigger course from 11 to number 1. Rigger course from 100 to number 1. Rigging courses from 28th number 1. Rigging ticket from 100 to number 1. Rigging training from 87 to number 1. Scented candles online from 30th to number 1. Single bed frames went from 8th to number 1. Single bed from 12th to number 1. Sleeveless coat from 36th to number 1. Sofa Melbourne from 100 to number 1. Sofa with chase from 81st to number 1. And that's about it. So if you see any questions about what we're doing here, if you want to get in touch with us, you can make contact via this link you can see on the screen. And I look forward to speaking to you soon.